Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are discussing Tarleton's new doctoral program in agriculture, and I'm pleased to be joined by one of the faculty coordinators of the program, Dr. Jessica Leatherwood. As she's going through her presentation, if you do have questions, we ask that you go ahead and submit those using the Q&A box or the chat box, and we will handle those at the end of the presentation. So at this time, I will just turn things over to Dr. Leatherwood.
Thank you, and I'm excited for the opportunity to talk about this new doctoral program in animal and natural resource sciences. So to give you a little bit of a background about our college, so this doctoral program is supported as a college-wide effort. And we have students that are particularly interested within the college in one of the three academic departments that we have here at Tarleton State University. This might include animal science, and I'm a faculty member in animal science, but we also have additional departments as well, including ag education and communication. And within that department, we have a division of agribusiness. And lastly, we have our wildlife and natural resources. So within our college, we have a diverse group and collection of faculty members with a wide range of expertise. And I think that's really set us up well in order to host and begin this doctoral program within our College of Ag and Natural Resources. And this particular program is housed here in Stephenville on main campus of Tarleton and is predominantly encompassing these three different academic departments. So when we look at kind of our PhD in animal and natural resource sciences, when we look at faculty expertise, so our faculty expertise, which should animate in now, would be things like animal science, wildlife management, economics, and then we have more of this extension and industry side of it as well. And so overall, with this collective group of faculty expertise, the focus of our program at the doctoral level is really to integrate food production and natural resource conservation. And so the combination of faculty and with their relative expertise in these individual areas, the focus of our program is to really integrate these different things. And so the photo here is actually an overview or kind of a satellite view of our ag farm or ag center here at Tarleton. And I think it really depicts a wide array of hands-on opportunities, not only in the classroom, but also on the research side as well. So we maintain a production herd of multiple livestock species. And as part of that, right, it's really important that we also have that ability to conduct some high quality research in order to train our doctoral level students. And so in addition to just the animal science aspect of it, we can also see that there's a lot of cross-disciplinary type opportunities even within this ag center as well. So we have folks that might be working more on the wildlife management side and really understanding more of that interaction between livestock and potentially imposing impacts to our wildlife, but also our natural resource side as well. So when we were originally developing this program and thinking about this whole idea, our program rationale really relies a lot on this being a cross-disciplinary degree. So while PhD students may come in and work for individual faculty with their known expertise, we really want to expand that and highlight a cross-disciplinary culture as part of our degree program. And I think that here in Stephenville, we're really at the epitome of this, thinking about how our close proximity is to Fort Worth, but yet we still have a lot of rural areas that are within reach. And so understanding as urban populations expand further out, right, and we get an increase in movement into these rural areas, at the other side of that, we still have these rural areas that may be a little bit more challenging to get a lot of accessibility to. So our degree program was really based on this cross-disciplinary aspect. And a lot of it is looking at wildlife and our kind of traditional production, agriculture and livestock, and what pressures that they may have imposed on them by our society as we are kind of continuing to expand. And what we really think of that as is this peri-urban expansion. So more land fragmentation, we get loss of agricultural land. So that in combination with our increase in food production is really where a lot of the background came for this particular program. And then what really culminates all of this is just that expectation of sustainability from our society. So when we think about this program, and if you might be interested in this program, it is a cross-disciplinary degree. So when you graduate with this degree program, it's a degree in animal and natural resource sciences. So it's really encompassing this entire college and not within a specific department like animal science or wildlife. So there is that intersection that really promotes the cross-disciplinary aspect of it. And so when we advertise this and we really think about it from a visual perspective, we have our food production, which is where we commonly fall on the animal science side, thinking about meat production. But we also have to understand that interplay with natural resources, what the conservation of those natural resources are. And then we also have to understand our societal responses and our social dynamics in response to food production and even natural resource conservation as well. So I think that's one thing that makes our program in particular very unique, is that we're really at the intersection of all three of these different aspects. And since our first admission of students was last January, we've really seen, as those students have begun to develop more awareness across these different disciplines. And we are continuing to expand our course offerings so that maybe students that are more trained in the animal science discipline may have more opportunities to maybe understand the dynamics or the dimensions and kind of human and plant interactions, or excuse me, animal and plant interactions in particular. So, and even including that human dimension aspect of it as well. So I think overall, when we think about actually advertising or marketing this particular program, it's relatively unique. But if you are still wanting to become a faculty member in animal science, let's say, for instance, we want to make sure that you still have the research projects that align to your specific discipline. And we also want to make sure that you have a sufficient amount of coursework, right, that would make you eligible in that specific program. However, you bring a unique attribute or a unique trait into a potential applicant pool because you've taken courses that may not be found in kind of our traditional type doctoral programs, where it might relate to natural resource conservation or understanding more of the qualitative side of research and understanding more survey-based data as well. So I hope that can give you a little bit of a background and kind of our ideology about the development of this particular program. And so when we look at the program requirements, one of the things that I must say is, in contrast to a master's program, for a doctoral program, it really is dependent upon identifying a faculty member that is willing to take you on as a doctoral student. So even if you apply, that doesn't guarantee acceptance or admission into the program. We have to really focus on identifying a faculty member to serve as a chair of your committee. So that's really our first step. Now, we would assume as part of that you would have completed a thesis-based master's program in a relevant field and you have a 3.0 GPA. There are some cases where we can have students that may not have a thesis based master's, but it's highly encouraged. And in order for you to be really competitive in the applicant pool. We definitely want to encourage that you have a thesis. I think, as most faculty might believe, that having that experience of writing a thesis or submitting a manuscript for publication, that's a major learning curve as part of your graduate program, and really important to make you competitive for admission into this program. So overall, don't think of it simply as, okay, I'm interested, I want to apply, I meet these requirements. You have to identify a faculty member that will take you on. You're welcome to view our website in animal science or in our other departments that we have here within the college, and maybe do a quick search of the faculty members and reach out to them individually. And so our program requirements, so we require a minimum of 45 hours of coursework and dissertation credit. So it's a 45-hour degree program. So you have to have at least 12 hours of coursework, at least 12 hours of dissertation work, and 3 hours of graduate seminar. So those seminar courses are there to really build that culture of cross-disciplinary opportunities that we find in all of our PhD students. So trying to have them connect and visit with other graduate students outside of their discipline. Because I really think beyond just the formal instruction, making sure that you take those opportunities to work on different projects through your PhD program is really valuable. And the only way you're going to do that is being able to connect with other graduate students in the program. So when they need help, they might be collecting samples at the dairy or at the farm, or they're out at a different research location. So all of those things I think are really important. So in total, the program is 45 hours. And so looking at just general expectations, you have to maintain a 3.0 in all of your doctoral coursework. And there's multiple components or steps that are needed for the completion of the degree. And when we designed this program, we really wanted to make sure that students were able to really stay on track in order to meet their timeline for completion for the PhD program. Typically, that PhD program is going to take you anywhere between 3 to 4 years, depending upon when your research starts. And so if we look at different benchmarks to consider as part of this program, the first one is a written proposal of your research. After that written proposal, you'll have a public defense of your proposed research. And that typically occurs within the second semester. Maybe if you start in the fall and you are looking at defending your proposal, maybe late spring, even into early summer. But we want to get that moving relatively quickly, because that's what's setting you up for all of the research that you have planned for your dissertation. And that could be, a starting point depending upon that faculty member's research that they have ongoing. That could be, planned work or work that's already planned, and you'll have a role in that research. So you write your proposal, your graduate committee will review that proposal, and that is followed by a public defense of your proposed research. So written in future tense or presented in future tense on all of your methods that you're proposing, but also providing that hallmark literature that gives you the background and justification in order to conduct your research. So that is an oral presentation. Usually it's a PowerPoint presentation of about 30 to 45 minutes with questions available thereafter. But it really gives faculty within the college to ask questions. Sometimes they're difficult questions, but you might as well get those questions asked before you take on actually conducting your research, so which is really, really valuable. So after you do a defense of your proposed research, you'll also then, usually the next semester or two, you would schedule your preliminary exams. And your preliminary exams are written and oral. Your first phase is to do your written exams. Your written exams are determined by your committee members and your committee chair. Historically, if we think about it on the animal science side, each member of your committee will give you a written exam. If you complete those written exams and you pass, you move on into an oral exam. And so a lot of times that might be an opportunity if you didn't do well on a certain question in your written exam, there might be additional questions during your oral exam as well. So thinking about standing in a room, you're in front of a whiteboard, and we can ask you a whole host of things. We might start with questions that you maybe were challenged with a little bit in your writtens. Now you're going to be able to address them in more detail. You've had more time to prepare those specific questions. And really the goal with this is to understand and learn more about how you think and understand that you still have to learn more, right? Even though a PhD is a terminal degree, it's always important that we continuously are learning and continuing to develop as educators. So preliminary examination is needed for candidate status. So you will become officially a PhD candidate once you pass your prelim exams. And then after that, it's really making sure you're continuing to do your research. You'll write your dissertation, and then you'll have a defense of your dissertation as you end or complete your degree. So those are just kind of the basic frameworks and the mechanics associated with the program. I also like to highlight, if we look here in Stephenville, we have a great group of faculty, but we also have some resources that I think are really important to us to make this PhD program successful. Not everything is brand new, but what we do have is very functional. We're able to get a lot of research done. So on the top left is our Animal and Plant Science Center. So that's where we have some research labs. On one side is animal science, the other side is plant science. And then we also have the Purple Tractor, which is our retail store that we have associated with our meats lab. And so great facility, one that we are still working on. My lab uses, or my lab group uses this facility quite a bit to do sample analyses, but we're really fortunate to have that. And then kind of directly behind that building, we have a lot of portable and covered pens directly behind there. Right now, we're actually getting ready to lamb and kid some sheep and goats. But it's a really nice, flexible space there at the farm. We do have an arena that's covered. We have some small ruminant pens that can get used quite frequently to be able to conduct our animal research. We also have a small swine herd here at our Ag Center. And then our faculty in wildlife, they have some great connections with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And we have a new collaboration with the Fossil Rim Wildlife Center as well. So we have a lot of opportunities in terms of getting our research done and getting it done well. And always remember too, at any of these facilities and at any of the research that we plan to use with any of our animals, we always go through a institutional animal care and use committee. And we have animal use protocols that are set up, and those AUPs have to be approved by our university before we begin any research. So not only do we have a governing body ensuring that we're always promoting the welfare of our animals that were used in studies, both from a university perspective and a faculty perspective, that in combination with these facilities and resources make us, I think, a really good location if you're interested in doing a PhD program, that we can successfully support you in that. So if you are interested in learning more about this PhD program, we do have our information available on our college website. So if that's something that you want to learn a little bit more about, you're welcome to visit that specific website. But I really think if this is something that interests you, maybe learning a little bit about this doctoral program, I would definitely encourage you maybe prepare a CV or a resume and review our list of faculty. Maybe look at some of their research that they have in published papers and conference proceedings, and try to find a faculty member that may fit your specific research interest area. I think is very important. And it also speaks very well if you go in and you do your homework and you understand more about their research and what their expertise are before contacting them as well. And so lastly, if you have additional questions about the doctoral program, you're welcome to reach out to me. Again, I'm Jessica Leatherwood in the Animal Science Department, but I also have a co-coordinator of this program that's in the Wildlife and Natural Resources Department, and her name is Dr. Heather Mathewson. And unfortunately, she was not able to join us on this webinar today, but Dr. Mathewson has a major role in the implementation of this doctoral program as well. So we both co-coordinate this under the direction of Dr. Barry Lambert, who is the dean of the college. And so again, if this is something that you're interested in, you're welcome to reach out to myself or to Dr. Mathewson, but make sure that you do your homework and try to find a faculty member that might be interested or that you might be interested in going to work for. Okay. And I think with that, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leatherwood. It was so helpful to hear you go through this information. And so for our live audience members, if you do have questions, we invite you to go ahead and submit those using the Q&A box or the chat box, and we will handle those shortly. In the meantime, I did have some questions for you myself, Dr. Leatherwood, just to get a better understanding. So I really enjoyed hearing you talk about the impetus for this program, the philosophy behind it. And if I heard you correctly, the first group of students started in January of 24. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so what is the vision in terms of how someone might use this degree? Are they going into academia to teach? Are they going into industry? What do you think will happen?
I think that's a great question, right? You make the investment both financially and time and really trying to figure out, well, what could I do with this degree program? I think you could do the classical approach of trying to work for a university. I think that that's always a valid option because a lot of times, right, maybe you're in your master's and you really enjoy teaching and you might have varying degrees of how much you love research. But I think within that, I think academia is always an option. But I also feel that industry positions as well would be equally valuable because you would have training in your respective discipline, right? But then you also have this other or more broad aspect of, you know, in addition to, maybe nutrient utilization in cattle, we also have to understand what the impacts are on manure and what maybe minerals may be deposited into that soil, how that might impact water and water quality. How do we need to handle the management of that manure? So you really have your discipline specific area, which I think is really important. But then you also have to focus on the natural resource side of it as well. And so when we really, as a co-coordinator of the program, I really encourage faculty members to obviously have your discipline specific research projects, but I think it's important that you also look at a complementary component to it, whether it's the human side of it, or maybe it's this natural resource side of it as well. So in my particular case or area, my focus is equine nutrition and physiology. And so when we design projects, we might have two projects that are really focused on nutrition specifically. How can we improve the performance of horses specifically? But then if we do that, right, and let's say we're increasing performance longevity, those horses are living longer, right? Then what ends up happening when you have an animal that might secrete, up to 50 pounds of manure a day, then we have to learn, okay, well, how are we managing that manure? How are we getting rid of it? Should we worry about any natural water that might be coming through that particular horse facility? So I think it really kind of makes things a little bit more full circle. But as we move forward, there's going to be this integration between these different topics. And I think it's going to be even more important that we understand both sides of this paradigm.
And so who in your mind would be an ideal student for this program? What academic backgrounds are they coming from? Are they coming straight from a master's program? Do they have some work and life experience that they're bringing?
So I think both are equally valuable. I have students in my program now that, they did undergrad, they moved in their master's, and then they immediately went into a PhD program. I think for me, personally, that's what I did. So I have the most familiarity with that. My parents were always so supportive through all of my degree programs. And so I always had to keep reminding them. It might have taken me 10 years to start college and in college, but every time I graduated on time. So there's that aspect of it. But then I've also had PhD students that have their master's degree. They may go work out in industry for a few years, maybe pick up a certain technique or a certain level of expertise, and then have an interest in coming back. I think the biggest thing that we always have to consider when you think about your doctoral program, I don't worry about the coursework because that's something that you're passionate about. That's something that you want to learn more about. The biggest thing is being dedicated to the research. And that's the biggest difference between a master's and a PhD is how much do you want to do research, and I work in a field or an area that, do I want horses to be a career or do I want them to be a hobby? And for quite a while, I only looked at them as a career, even though I grew up having horses almost my entire life. But I became so focused and I wanted horses to be my career and not necessarily my hobby. And so going through graduate work and starting equine programs at multiple colleges really lended me more into finding this as what my passion is from a career perspective. And I'm just now rediscovering horses, so to speak, as a hobby just within the last year. So you really have to figure out what level of commitment you're willing to give to be successful in this doctoral program.
Well, and speaking of coursework, is there a set degree plan or are the courses individualized based on people's interests and goals?
Sure. I think that's a great question. In terms of, just looking at the coursework besides a certain number of a minimum number of dissertation hours, your graduate seminar, we are encouraging students to have at least 2 semesters of statistics courses, because again, I think if you want to be competitive for an industry or a academic position, usually, right, you become that technical specialist and you might be looking at data, regardless if it's related to research or maybe it's sell, like number of dollars or sales that you're experiencing with different products, and having different ways to evaluate that data, I think is really important. And beyond that, beyond just the statistics and those seminar courses, it's really up to you all as to what specific courses that you might be interested in that align with your degree program or degree interest.
Yeah. Is there a certain number of students you're hoping to enroll? And is there a cap on how many you can accommodate?
So right now we have right around 20 students in our doctoral program. I think in terms of a cap, it really depends on our faculty and their capacity to take on PhD students. In addition to it being a commitment on you as a student, it's also a commitment for us as well, because we have to find funding for research projects. We also have to find funding for you to maybe support travel, going into different, professional conferences and that type of thing. So we are really laying the foundation as well. And we are really committing to you as an individual and as a student to be successful in the program. So I really think there's not an ideal number of students that we're wanting in this program. It's driven by faculty capacity.
What are the assistantship and funding opportunities?
So each within each faculty member, there might be differences in funding opportunities in terms of assistantships and what that might look at or what that might look like. But that's really going to depend on the individual faculty member and making that initial conversation, which then could be followed by discussing further about what assistantships might be available for you.
So you recommended next step is get on the College of Ag website, see who the faculty are and see what their research has been. What if someone is interested in the program, but they don't see a faculty member who cleanly aligns with whatever their interests are?
Sure. I think that's a great question. You know, in an ideal world, you know, you're always welcome to reach out to me or to Dr. Mathewson, if that kind of at least closes down a little bit more of what you might be interested in. But the other thing you have to think about is if you're getting a PhD and what your specific research interests are, if that doesn't align here, then I wouldn't suggest trying to, trying to make this work by doing a PhD. A lot of it is driven not only by the university and selecting the university that you want to go to for your PhD. I would say about 80% of that decision is on the faculty member and who you want to work for as a faculty member. So if you don't necessarily find something that really aligns with what your interests are, you're still welcome to reach out to myself or Dr. Mathewson, and we can kind of help guide you with that process. But it's ultimately going to land on what does that faculty member, what are their research interests, and is that truly what you're passionate about?
So then would you advise locking down and identifying your faculty mentor before you even apply for the program?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. That will be the first step, is to identify that faculty member and reach out to them before you apply.
When can students enroll? Is it year round or is it certain terms that new students will start?
Sure. So we can take students at any semester throughout the year. Usually, you know, if we're really wanting to have something for, let's say, summer, we try, you know, by March 15th to try to get them enrolled for summer. You know, the same thing might be, you know, about June 15th for the fall. There's no published deadlines. You'd have to double check that on our website. But the more timing that you give us on the front end, the better. Because it's not just admission into the program to take these classes. We have to, once you reach out to us, we have to identify if you will be a good fit based on your credentials. And then we have to think about assistantships to offer to you and what type of research projects that you might be able to lead as a PhD student. So there's a lot of organization that goes into that. And so the earlier that you reach out, the better.
So someone enrolls in whatever given term, fall, spring, summer. At what point did you say they will make their proposal of research?
Sure. So that their proposal for their research is typically done in the second semester once they've started.
And
like middle to end of the second semester.
And how is their committee chosen and how many on the committee? Is it 3?
Sure. So the committee is formed by the PI and the graduate student, predominantly by the graduate student. And the majority of the faculty members on the committee have to be faculty here at Tarleton. Because a PhD program, you know, we definitely want to, depending upon the research, include additional faculty members on that committee, which you could have maybe 5 or 6, but the requirement is 4. But we can have outside of that actual graduate committee, we can have faculty that might be outside the institution, might be outside of the college, because I think that's a valuable part of your learning experience as a PhD student. But regardless, you have to have the majority of those faculty being from here at Tarleton.
Oh, that's interesting. So minimum of 4 on your committee, led by whoever your faculty mentor is, with the possibility of other members coming from outside the College of Ag or even outside of Tarleton.
Yes.
Okay.
And then obviously they'll have to get graduate faculty status for us here at Tarleton. But I always tell my PhD students it's a good balance, right? Between your minimum number that you need to form your committee, versus your total number, because that means you're going to have to take, if you have 6 people on your committee, you're going to have to take 6 written exams, versus maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit more doable. So
Definitely something to think about and handle.
yeah, be
Very,
strategic.
yes, very good. Well, this has been so enlightening and so exciting. I don't see any questions from our live audience members, but I want to remind them that the recording of this webinar will be available to review on demand on the College of Graduate Studies YouTube channel. And so feel free to go back and review as needed. And if you know of others who might be interested in the program or who could benefit from this doctoral degree, we hope that you will share this with them as well. I'm going to backtrack to the contact information for Dr. Leatherwood and Dr. Mathewson. And again, just start learning more about the faculty in the College of Ag, and hopefully you'll find someone whose interests align with yours, and we can take things from there. So any final parting words for any potential prospective students, Dr. Leatherwood, before we close out today?
No, I just think that if it's something that you are interested in, I would encourage you to reach out to myself or Dr. Mathewson to learn more about the program.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time, Dr. Leatherwood. Best of luck with this new program. It's exciting to see what you and your students are going to accomplish and where they'll end up. Looking forward to seeing that first cohort finish up in the next, three to 4 years.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
And see where they end up. So thank you to our live audience members for your time and attention today. And I think with that, we'll end the webinar. So thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.